Lisa was spending a quiet night in her distant countryside home. Silence enveloped the place, and the clock had passed midnight. She sat in her favorite chair by the window, reading a book under the dim light of the lamp. The cold air seeped in through the slightly open window, but it didn't bother her. She was accustomed to this dark calm. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a faint knocking at the door. Lisa slowly lifted her eyes from the book, unsure if she had really heard the sound or if it was just her imagination. The knocking continued, this time a little louder. She cautiously rose from her seat and made her way toward the door. When she opened the door, she found a strange young man standing in front of her, wearing a long coat and a hat that almost concealed his facial features. The darkness enveloped the area, making it hard for her to see his face clearly, but his voice was calm when he said, "May I come in?" Lisa hesitated for a moment. She didn't know this person, and there was no reason for him to show up at this late hour. "Who are you?" she asked cautiously. "I am a visitor from far away," said the young man in a cold tone, "in need of what you lost." Lisa felt a strange pang in her heart, as if his words touched a buried memory. But she didn't remember right away. Before she could reply, the young man felt an unannounced, authorized entrance. He took a step inside, quietly closing the door behind him. Ever since he entered, Lisa had felt something heavy in the air. The house that had seemed so safe and comfortable had suddenly turned eerie, as if the shadows were longer, and the air heavier. She looked at him, trying to understand what he wanted, but his eyes were empty, like two dark wells. "You know what I want," he said quietly. "The statue." Lisa froze. The statue. She suddenly remembered. Years ago, while walking in the nearby woods, she had found and now it's time to get it back, at a price. Lisa felt the place around her begin to change. The walls shook, the lights dimmed, the air grew heavy. The shadows that surrounded the room began to move as if they were living beings. She felt as if everything was conspiring against her. Fill the room. Give it back, or else. Before Lisa could reply, the young man disappeared into the shadows, as if the ground had swallowed him. He left the house in chaos and terror. Since that night, Lisa no longer felt safe in her home. The shadow of the strange young man still haunted her, and the whispers did not stop. One night Lisa decided to end this nightmare. She went out into the backyard, where she had buried the statue years ago. She took a shovel and a flashlight, and began to dig the ground where she had buried the statue. Whispers surrounded her, as if warning her not to come any closer. After a few minutes of digging, the edge of the statue appeared. It was covered in dirt, but the strange engravings that had filled it were still clear. As she tried to remove the statue, she felt something behind her. She turned slowly, and saw the strange young man standing before her again, his eyes still empty, but this time there was another shadow beside him, tall and massive. "Finally," said the young man, "you returned what was stolen." "I returned it," replied Lisa, trembling. "Please, leave me alone now." The young man smiled coldly and said, "You have returned the statue, but the price has not been paid yet." At that moment, the ground beneath Lisa's feet shook, and shadows began to surround her. She felt like she was being dragged into another world, into a dark and scary place. She tried to run away, but her feet were stuck to the ground. Shadows wrapped around her body, pulling her deeper into the darkness. Everything around her began to disappear, and she could hear mysterious whispers echoing in her ears, as if announcing an inevitable end. And at the last moment, before she disappeared completely, she heard one clear whisper, "The fate has been sealed." And then everything disappeared. The next morning, the neighbors came to Lisa's house, but they couldn't find her. The door was open, and the backyard was upside down, as if something had happened there. But Lisa was gone, and no one could find her. Yet as midnight approached, whispers would echo through the village, mysterious and terrifying whispers, telling a story of a woman who paid for something she shouldn't have taken. One night, Lisa suddenly returns to the village, her features pale, and tells her terrifying story to the neighbors, revealing how she managed to escape after returning the statue to its rightful place and escaping the mysterious shadows at the last moment.